Today's lesson is fractions. It's 6.2 and 6.3. First, I want to start by reviewing a fraction, and we all know a fraction. Fraction means a part of. It means a part of a whole or a group. And up to this point, we're just talking about a whole. Fraction has two parts again. It has the top numerator and the bottom denominator. This fraction happens to be 2/3, which means my pieces in the whole are 3. So it would take, here's my whole, 3 equal pieces. I'm referencing 2 of those. So 2/3 is my fraction, numerator 2, denominator 3. I had one whole in that last fraction. And if I have one whole and my bottom denominator is 3, or it's divided into 3 pieces, one whole equals 1, 2, 3. 3 of the 3 pieces, 3/3. If my whole had 4 pieces in it, my bottom denominator is 4. My top numerator would be 4 pieces. 1 equals all pieces in the whole. So 1 equals my top and my bottom. My numerator and denominator are the same number. That means I have all the pieces that make a whole. When we're adding fractions with common, which means the same denominator, if I had 2/5 plus 2/5, that denominator tells me I have 5 pieces in the whole. Let's make that one a little bit bigger so it's even. So I have 2 of the 5 plus 2 of the 5. That equals 4/5. So let's take a look at this. 5 equals, well, no, I'm going to go with, let's go 1 whole equals 5/5, and it also equals, what did I have up here? 2/5 plus 3/5. 1 whole equals 5/5, all 5 of the pieces, or 2 of the 5 plus 3 of the 5. So let's say I start with 7/7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7/7 minus 3/7. So I'm going to take 1, 2, 3 of those away, equals 1, 2, 3, 4/7. So remember, when you're doing fractions with a common or same denominator, that denominator stays the same, and I'm just subtracting my numerator, my pieces. I had 7 and I took 3 of them away. So it's 4/7. I want to do a problem this way. Because you're going to see it like this. This is the same thing if it's written linear or as a cross. 3/5 plus 1/5. Again, my same or common denominator is fifths. I have 3 of those pieces and I take 1 away, so I'm left with 2/5. The same thing works if we're doing subtraction. I'm going to start with 7/8 and I'm going to take away 4/8. 7/8 minus 4/8. My pieces or my denominator is 8. I start with 7 and I take 4 away. I'm left with 3. 7/8 minus 4/8 equals 3/8. If I had a full glass and I drank, oops, one third of a glass of milk. I drank 1/3 of a glass of milk. How much did I have left? So we can make that into, here's my glass of milk. And I drank 1/3, so that means I'm going to divide that glass into 3 equal parts, 1, 2, 3. And let's fill it up with milk. And I drank 1/3. How much is left? What size pieces? The denominator is thirds. There's 2 left. How would I turn that into a multiplication or a subtraction sentence? 3/3, which is that full glass, minus 1/3 equals 2/3. Again, I drank 1/3 of a glass. There's 3 equal parts in that whole glass. I drank 1 of them. How many are left? 2. 3/3 minus 1/3 equals 2/3. One last thing I want to touch upon for today is ordering fractions and by their denominator. Denominator is the size piece, the pieces in the whole. If I had 1/4, that means it takes 4 pieces to make a whole. If I had 1/2, that means it's only 2 pieces to make a whole. This kind of goes back to at the beginning of the year when I talked about sharing that bag of candy with the group. If there were 2 people in a group and you got 1 of those 2 pieces, or if there were 4 people in a group and you got 1 of those 4 pieces, which one of those fractions would be bigger? 1/2. 1/2 is greater than 1/4. It's almost like the opposite of 2 and 4. Generally 4 means more than 2. But in fractions, the smaller the denominator, the bigger the piece. The smaller the denominator, the bigger the piece. I'm going to put 1/8, 1/3, 1/5, and 1/2. I'm going to order those from the smallest piece to the biggest piece. So that means in my whole, and you can look at your fraction bars if you want to get an idea of that. Your fraction bars should be in your workbook. If you have your workbook, check out your fraction bars for a visual. That whole, the whole is the same size. I'm cutting that whole into 8 pieces. Or I'm cutting that whole into 3 pieces, into 5, or into 2. The smallest pieces would be 1/8. That's my smallest fraction. Then my next smallest, or one that's a little bit larger, is 1/5. Then comes 1/3 and then last 1/2. If I had to put a greater than or less than symbol, I'm going to use 1/2 and 1/5. 1/2 or 1/5. I'm splitting it into 2 parts. I'm splitting it into 5. 1/2 is more than 1/5. So remember, when you're talking about denominators, the bottom number, how many pieces in that whole? The bigger, the larger the number on the bottom means it's broken up into more pieces, so each part is smaller. 1/8 is much smaller than 1/5, 1/3, or 1/2. Keep that in mind, and if you have any questions, send me an email or go back and check over the video one more time.